And we're live. Wait a minute. Where's the thing? Where's the thing? Where's the thing? I got acid reflux. I don't got COVID. I don't know why. That's an odd thing. When I have acid reflux, I tend to cough. Pin. Yeah, they just gave us the option to pin things. Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear us out there in YouTube land? All couple of you guys that are watching us here. Boop, 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 boop. Yay! Okay. Thank you guys all for being here tonight. This is the first meeting of the annual year, not our fiscal year. That was a couple months ago. It's January 12th, 2021, Anime Twin Cities board meeting. There's not a whole heck of a lot on the list tonight. So this is probably going to be a relatively fast meeting. So we will start off as we usually do, recapping any off-cycle board actions and votes. Unless I missed something, then I don't think we conducted any conversations or anything since the last meeting. That brings us. I don't think we have any visiting parties or planned discussions or any equipment rental requests coming in. So that brings us right into the open session. We reserve the first 30 minutes of each of the meetings for any kind of questions or conversations that anybody in the audience might have for us. So we'll just give it a couple minutes for anybody to message anything in chat. Were you raising your hand or adjusting things? Okay, just making sure. I should probably pull up Kim's email for finance. Oh, we lost John. I know, probably in and out since he said he's on a hotel Wi-Fi. Um, that's one of those conversations we've been having, and we're still looking into. It's unfortunately because I know we have people have been asking that over the last several meetings, and it's not trying to sound like a broken record, but that's about what it's going to sound like for a while. This isn't going to be any short, sweet, definitive answer that's going to work for everything. It's new grounds for us, so we're kind of trying to figure it out as we go. But it is something that we are being mindful of, and we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do. It's gonna be a little bit yet till we can start rolling on things. Personally, I'd say probably until because with how things are going to be going the next couple months, it's probably going to be a few months until we have a more firm decision on it. Yep. And also, just as a reminder, I know at this point, people have told people, but we have not, Anime Detour has not made an official statement that we've canceled yet. So, um, please don't go yelling it from the rooftops. We give the Detour team a chance to get their post out, because that's very frustrating to have to fight those fires. Dave. Um, hold on.
Like
Yeah, I
something
could hear
very-
Dave
Can you
just
get?
fine.
Okay. Hold on. Let me check my inputs. Make sure everything's going.
What?
Yeah, because
The
OBS
YouTube
has a
chat is saying they can't hear you, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me double check my settings.
How's this? Is this better?
No, it's
No,
it's
no,
not.
it's
It's not you.
It was
It's
one.
OBS.
It was one of my
Like,
settings.
we
Something
can
did
hear
not.
you.
Something did not unmute. Okay. Can Dave? Would you like to say that again, please? I think I've got you fixed. So, and then Troy will
I
get
would
to
like
you.
to. I would like to emphasize because I've asked and people who have been in communication with me, who I've told them we haven't made a decision. You'll be the first to know. I'm respectful of your time, etc., and so forth. And if suddenly they hear from an outside source before an official announcement is made, some people have been known to get upset. Some people, you don't care. You're not talking to me. Other people know it before it. So it would really help out programming if everybody kept that as requested, private within staff until it's announced. Okay, it helps me a lot. Thank you.
Troy.
Very similarly, and we talked about it at the department head meeting this weekend. Every once in a while, we'll have an issue brought up where staff feel like they weren't advised on it until what they felt was sort of the tail end near resolution of things. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's accidental, and sometimes it's intentional. Going forward, it's probably how we will look at doing things. If we put out there to only our staff group something that deals with legalities and contracts and partnership with the hotel that hosts our event, and staff can't control themselves, then the only thing we can do is control when staff find that out. We asked for the time to let us announce it to people, and it was up online almost immediately. To that end, Detour will be following up. And if you are someone wherein we're not able to trust you with that sort of sensitive information, then
Hold on, Troy. They're saying people are now saying once again they cannot hear people talking. What?
I don't know if YouTube's just being funny on their end because you just unmuted people, or if there's a delay in us being able to see what's in the chat.
Well, because that's the thing. Allie said she could hear everyone. Then Amy
Yeah,
said she
but you're
could
saying
hear.
they can. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people were saying they can, and then some are saying they can't.
yeah, and just to speak to what Kevin said, yes, we all know that the meetings are public, and there'll be obviously I'll speak to that as part of the tour coordinator update. We'll have a public announcement tomorrow is the hope, at least on social media. There might need to be we're just waiting on confirmation about what sort of lead time we'll need to get it up on the website, but it will be up on our social media entities. But yeah, it's as Tristan said, a little disappointing. There are some things that we do need to, and it wasn't the way that we had hoped it would be, but that was the way it was. So, but yeah, if that's not something that staff are able to do, then we'll follow up with those individuals.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was gonna get at there, Kevin. I know, yeah, they are public, but it was, and I know Allie didn't mean anything necessarily like that, but it's, or at least I would assume, but it's just more one of those. In effect, to James's question, please let the detour team get a chance to get their message out publicly before necessarily spreading the word to everybody. Just so that gives them a time to address all the issues or questions in something maybe like an FAQ. Ashley, I saw you had a question.
It was just making sure that James's question didn't get pushed ahead.
Yep.
With all the chatter regarding not being able to hear us. Just wait for the social media post from Detour before announcing it to anybody outside of staff.
Yep. Yeah, because they're gonna
Even if they are another con that is at the ambassador like that they have an ambassador table, don't wait for Detour executives to make their announcement.
Yep. Did anybody else have any questions or on anything else?
I do.
Okay, what's up?
You know how like and I'm not sure if I can talk about this or not on here, but just correct me if I can since I'm fairly new. You know how like when you serve on the board and then you have to take a gap year?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, sir. It's the 2 consecutive full-year terms, and then you got to take a 2-year. You must abstain for a full 2-year term before you can run again.
Okay. I'm not sure who wrote that, but that was definitely before our time.
Actually, that was what we just passed last month.
Yeah, are you looking at the updated bylaws? It's still the same. It had updated language with the 2 operating year term.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you can only serve 4 consecutive years, and then you have to stay away for 2 years.
Okay.
So even if you can't just stay away for 1 year and show up on the year of the cycle after yours.
Okay, got it. Is that something that we can talk about again during the next bylaw change?
Bylaw changes happen whenever the majority feels they are needed. Yeah. Somebody can propose them. We'll have a discussion, and if we all feel that it is something needed, then it is proposed to the membership for the voting, and then if voted as a yes, it is then made official. That's not a quick process. It does take a couple of months, but that is usually how the process goes. But that is definitely, so if you feel that something's wrong, please bring it up. That's how we fix things. We may have put some time in it. It may be new, but it's still not perfect.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I just think it needs to be updated and maybe, yeah, actually I do think it just needs to be changed. I don't think it's wrong per se. I just think it needs to be changed.
What should be changed?
So?
Yeah.
Just no more gap year.
So
you
you can only serve 4 years and then not anymore. Is that kind of what you're saying, or are you saying that you can serve as long as you get elected? I guess.
Yeah, you can serve as long as you get elected. Like if you're still doing a good job, Christina, I'd still like to vote you back in.
I'll be down for that. I support that.
Yeah.
So,
it's kind of hard for us to get new staff members as it is already. Staff members.
So here's the thing: is the way it is phrased, and I actually did talk to Kale because I know there has been some discussion about term limits with all the people stepping down and people having to step up and fill terms. I know in Kale to show me some of the original bylaws that it had a stipulation in there for partial terms not counting as towards that. It had to be 2 full terms consecutive, 2 full terms, or 2 fulls and a partial counting.
Okay.
But hold on, squirrel, lost my train of thought. Give me a second here. There is a section in there. So if during an election, so let's say during this one, because I know it's myself and Tony, I believe, are the ones that will be up for re-election. Dave, okay. So the 3 of us will, our terms are up come this April-ish. If the people looking to fill the positions do not equal that 7 to fill all of it, so if the people looking to refill those are not the max needed, then those people can run again to fill those seats. I know I don't have the words off the top of my head. John, Troy, Ashley, in that order.
So is there actual language in our bylaws that state if there's no acceptable candidate that wants to run for a position, the board member's position, or the board member that held the position that is now up for election can rerun?
Let me look up the wording, unless Ashley
Hang
beats
on,
me to
hang
it
on.
because she's typing.
It's not a wording. By default, if there is no one to take your seat, you continue your position by default.
Thank you.
That's just how that works, because there's nobody else to fill in your position. So like if nobody ran for president this election cycle, because president is up for grabs, if nobody runs for president this election cycle, Tristan by default would keep the presidency for the next term until the next election could be held.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning there would be no vote on it? He would just automatically get it?
Correct. There would be no vote on it because you can't vote the president out. As for board member, so board members would be different because they're not required to be filled. So board members would be filled by the board itself, similar to like how we got Hatura and Dave on the board, is how they would go, is if they chose to fill those seats. You would not have to have an election if nobody ran. So the board member wouldn't necessarily keep the seat. Only the executive member would. So the treasurer, the president, and I think secretary is also impacted by that. Because
Secretary's not a voted on.
It's required to have. You are required to have a secretary.
Yes.
So you have to have somebody. So if you have to have somebody, they don't give up their seat automatically if there's no election.
Yes, let me look at the chat real quick. Hold on. Historically, we added that in to make it seem like like we weren't trying to keep people from getting on the board. A break was decided to help make it easier for fresh blood to get in. Yes, I definitely do agree. But just in reference to the wording in there, as far as term limits, the exact wording is, this limit does not apply to the regarding the term limits, that 2 and then 2 off. This limit does not apply to the treasurer, nor does it apply if the number of new candidates for the board is equal to or less than the number of outgoing officers, excluding the treasurer. So that is the exact wording.
Thank you.
So yes, if there's nobody to replace it or replace the person, then the person is just automatically, as long as they still want the position.
Board members would not be automatic. It's only executive members that would be automatic.
Even if the board member leaving would mean we would no longer have quorum?
It does say we have to have 3.
We do I need to look at that to see if we physically cannot make quorum. There are, in Robert's rules, there are stipulations for how to handle if you physically cannot, like if you possibly cannot have quorum.
Okay.
That's actually something that I was had a couple people bring up to me after we passed them. That's actually something I think we should look at, revising the rules of quorum to a percentage.
Yeah. In other bylaws I've seen, they have the count like we do now, or a percentage if that count can't be met. Because the minimum you need to host a meeting is 3.
Yeah. Well.
What?
According to our bylaws, we need a president, secretary, treasurer, and a minimum of 3.
By Robert's rules, the minimum you need is 3. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Robert's
To host a meeting.
Okay.
Robert rules is a guideline, not the charter.
Yeah.
Our
Our rules say we need 5 officers of the board to
Yeah, so it's common in, I'm just gonna lower my hand. It's common in other bylaws to state like if quorum cannot be physically met, meaning that you do not have 5 people on your board, that you have a percentage or a minimum number of people required if it's below that number. So since our quorum is 5, we could make that minimum number 3.
Okay.
I wouldn't make it any even numbers, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Troy, you've had your hand up for a bit.
So just for clarification, I was aware of, and then you had mentioned it, that previously there was language in there helping us to deal with partial terms. There's no longer any language in there pertaining to that.
Yeah, that wasn't. I did not know that until I was talking to Kale earlier this week. In any of the editions have seen, there was none in there, but that was originally in there. For partial term limits, there was originally some wording in there. That was one of the things that apparently that he and Lauren. There's a handful of things that he and Lauren caught because they actually didn't see them until right before we were voting on them. So I've been trying to touch base with them on some of the issues that they saw so that we can try to get those adjusted and actually, continue to accomplish our goal of closing out those loopholes so we don't get caught unawares again.
Yeah, I didn't see any language in any of the previous bylaws regarding partial term limits that are on the website. So
Yeah, and
it's definitely something that we should look at.
Yeah.
Especially since it's affected a lot of people this year, especially.
Right.
Yeah, and that's something I can shoot him an email or something and see if he or Lauren have an older copy of them that they might be able to give us for an example. Well, if it's not
publicly available, so is it even? I mean, there's several edits that are noted. So
yeah. I just figured maybe
know what edit we're looking at.
Yeah. Well, I just figured they might have
Just
an
something
old
to
file they were
reference.
working on. Yeah. Just for reference on the wording. So, Dave, you got your hand up?
Yeah. Hertara,
Yes.
if you and me want to work together to eliminate the gap year, we can work together via email to have a proposal for the charter because I support you on that. I had gone to Vermont when term limits were introduced, and I think it hurts continuity, especially with nonprofits having trouble getting a board in the first place. So if you want to work together.
Yeah, I'll work with you on it. I think the main reason why I'm concerned with it now it's because it just sounds like we've had a hard time getting in new board members.
Mhm.
Maybe it is due to our fault not advertising it, but
I think that
due diligence.
one of the requirements of a board member is to want to put forward your opinions and your
Did
judgments.
everyone just disappear?
No,
No.
it was all you.
Oh.
Nope.
Oh, still here.
Sorry. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Christina, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off too much earlier.
Nope, I was going to just be like, okay, does someone want to work on a proposal? And it sounds like they're doing that, so we're good.
Okay.
But do we need a separate sort of task force then for you guys to rewrite whatever it was that you were talking about?
Really, all that would just be for them to get together, figure out something, present it, and see if we can come to an agreement on the wording. Or if,
I think what we're looking at now is not a giant initiative like rehauling the bylaws was.
Right.
It's just gonna. Yeah, I don't think we need to.
Yeah. And then
Okay, because what you guys were talking about seemed sort of a little bit different than removing the gap year. It talked about quorum and.
Yeah. And then I know Kevin makes a good point. And I know in my time with the board, I don't think the only positions that we've ever had any problems filling would be the treasurer or the secretary.
Yeah, I mean, we had, 5 or 6 people run?
9 people for 3
Yeah,
seats.
it was a lot. Yeah.
There were 9 people who applied for 3 seats last year.
And it's usually somewhere between the 4 to 10 that I've seen each year. So it's definitely a discussion to have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I will just write down that Hotur and Dave are going to work on a proposal. Do you guys think you want to talk about that in February? But February is going to be when we're talking about the financial situation. So maybe you guys would come back in March with it, or
I don't know if you necessarily. I mean, it'll be up to Hotur and Dave. I don't think that's something that needs to be tracked on board activities. If it's just going to be a proposal, I think because if they get partway through it, we don't want to go back and have them go, well, we decided when we looked at it that it actually didn't fit what we thought it would. So
Okay.
or any other series of events.
I mean, that's just what the projects are, though, so we don't forget stuff. Yeah. Okay. Whenever.
Okay. Did anybody else in the audience have any questions on that subject or any other subjects? Clarification, questions, concerns, anything else?
I agree, Kevin. Yeah. It sounds like a
Yeah, because it's not.
bylaw proposal in
Yeah.
being thrown around rather than a project itself.
Okay. Well, I am not seeing anything from anybody else in the chat here. If you guys do think of something, please just pop in, let us know. You know, it's we don't have a terribly busy agenda tonight, so we'll be moving on. So we should have plenty of time to go over things if we miss anything. But for now, we will move on to the coordinator updates. Troy, this time, if you would you mind if I just had you go last? Just because you were the only coordinator here today.
I'm the only coordinator.
Kim? Technically listed as a coordinator.
Well,
You're not officially a coordinator.
Okay, yeah. I'm just shepherding it.
Exactly. So I'll just start with, I got the Charities, Communities, and Communications. Or not Charities, I'm sorry. Communities, Communications, and SOS that I've kind of been keeping an eye on. Same as the last several months. Most of those are, physical stuff. There's really not much going on. Holding pattern is about where we've been sitting still. Going into finance, actually, because Kim is not here tonight. Pull up her email from us. So she did get us the December income and expenses. She said a couple items to note. Was that Christina, she worked with United. We got a refund on one of Bill Rogers' flights. Apparently, it's her understanding that American Airlines provided the guests with future flight vouchers, so there will be no refunds for those. As far as the Wells Fargo merchant account that we had talked about canceling, it appears that the account wasn't being closed until December 9th. That Wells Fargo still billed the past monthly charge plus the annual compliance support fee. She thought that the last month would have been the last fee, not taking into account that we paid in arrears, not in advance. Artist alley registration refund. Looks like there was a couple of refund checks that were originally written back in March or April, and that hadn't been cashed yet until just last month. Since we don't put any void after so many days indication on them. Looks like they just cashed them. We've got then second thing she had sent us was the draft of the annual Form 990. She's asking the board to review the draft. Document must be filed no later than February 15th, 2021. She doesn't want to wait that far though, so just make sure your name is spelled correctly in the board members section. So all of you please double check that to make sure. Ashley, she knows your last name is missing, and she is going to get that corrected before it is filed. As far as the grant section, she knows that we did not make any charitable giving the past year, but we did have 2 payments made from the leg account, one in February and one in May, and that's what's accounted. That's what accounted for there. The state of Minnesota annual form. Looks like there's not much to review on there, but she wanted to include it anyways, just so we have that information. She does need to have. I do need to have her make a correction to the physical address portion and the fiscal year end. Once that's all finalized, she's going to get it sent to me so we can get that signed and filed with the state. Looks like that's about everything she had to cover for that. Did anybody have any questions on any of that? Anybody get a chance to look at things yet?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, did all of the board members present get her email?
Yes.
Yes.
Dave, your hand was up first.
Okay.
Yeah, you said 2 of the disbursements in February and May of last year were from the leg fund. Is that, did I hear that correctly?
That's what she wrote in her email. That would, as far as I remember, that lines up with the wow, why can't I remember his name?
That's okay.
Greg or Chris?
I'll just,
Chris. Yeah.
I'll take care of that with her.
Yeah.
I'll discuss it more during charities.
Yeah, that would be my assumption, is that those were the payments that we made to him earlier in the year. Or for him, not to him.
So the comment I was going to make was, do we want to look into putting an expiration date on any checks we issue?
I would definitely say that's something we're going to want to look into, because we don't want to sit there, write a check, and have them cash it a year and a half later.
Exactly.
I don't know how that stuff sits, but that's definitely a discussion point to be had. Dave?
Okay.
Sorry, I work with checks. One of my jobs is to find stale dated checks. You can't. Stale dated checks usually have 180 days for the check itself to be valid.
Okay.
However, depending on what the check was for, a sheetment usually lasts. That's where you take the money, or that there's trying to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's required, you send it to the state. I don't know if we pay a vendor and they don't cash the check, what the law is. I don't know if we can sheet it, or if it goes to goes to the state or whatever. But I do know 180 days makes the check an invalid tool.
Yeah, these 2 checks, we were at 240 days. We were at 8 months.
They if you can't reissue them, I would just write them off.
Oh no, well, no. She was pointing out that they were cashed. Wells Fargo honored them and cashed them 8 months after they were written.
Wells Fargo is. Never mind. I'm gonna keep my opinions to myself.
Yeah, I feel like even if the check is void after a certain amount of time, then that just means the customer has to call customer service, and then they'll get another check sent, and we don't have that. So I don't know. I feel like we probably should just leave it alone. But we could always ask Kim, I guess.
Troy, you got a hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, lest we confuse anybody, Kim isn't the coordinator.
Yes. Well, she's
No.
in the list of coordinators, or of coordinator updates.
Treasurer is not
Okay.
a coordinator, though.
But she's
I'm
not a
aware.
coordinator. But you said she was a coordinator.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
In the
she's in that
coordinator
part of the
updates.
agenda.
Yes.
Accuracy is important.
Yes, I understand.
So short answer, we need to do more research into the topic.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay. So then, Dave, do we have any updates with charities?
Yes. I know we do have an attorney on.
Yes.
Retainer.
Charles.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the term. Okay, so if I have questions regarding the information I'm doing for submission for leg funds, what we need requirements, etc. and so forth, so the IRS is happy if they ever audit us. I had some questions for him. I don't have them ready. They're over there.
I can get you in touch with
Who
them.
do I contact? Who contacts the attorney? Do I send it to someone here, or like the secretary? If we have that's Ashley, right? No.
Christina is the secretary.
Nope.
It's me, but I don't know who that is either.
I
so.
can I communicate with Charles frequently.
Okay.
I can get you in touch with him.
Yeah, I know Charlie Ravine. I communicate him for GPS.
Okay.
But I wanted to go through the right thing. So I send it
yeah.
these questions to you to get answers from him so you can send them to you and back. That's fine. Okay. That's all my question was.
You don't need to go through me, but I would actually like to know that information. So if you could CC me on that, that would be very appreciated.
I'll just send it to you. That's the best way, because therefore it's your responsibility, not mine. And other than that preparation, I have done no pre-work for any charitable distributions in April, May, because I think it's pretty commonsensical that we're not going to have it. I'm sure that,
One would assume at this point.
Right. And that won't violate our 501c3 charter because of financial
Fiduciary responsibilities.
fiduciary issues. It's only, we don't have to die by the letter of the law. So I haven't done any pre-work there, and I wanted to make sure that the board was fine with that.
I have no
Yep.
problems with that.
The only thing that I would maybe suggest is that we start drafting a letter now about in advance of not having any distributions. Like it's common sense that we're not going to have them, but just so we
Fair.
can communicate with anybody who asks.
So to continue our relationships with these people who ask. us.
Correct.
That I'll get ready with that one. Also, anybody listening in YouTube, for some reason I don't have the YouTube chat. I do need a coordinator, and it's part of my task to get a coordinator. So if you're interested in Charities, you won't be alone because I've been the paperwork guy in Charities for the last couple years. So if you're interested in a coordinator position, come talk to me. Thank you. I'm done. Troy, did you need me?
I was just going to second what they said about the letters getting out. I don't believe we ever got any confirmation that letters went out to all of our partners last year.
Can you,
Or-
when you do that, can you make sure you let the board, the two things we asked last year that were that we never got confirmation on is let us know who they get sent to and what's just what is sent so we know.
I would like to say in my defense that I asked the previous coordinator several times, would you like some help with this? Which ones do you want? And I was politely said, I've got it taken care of. You'll have a list. I'm going to send it out via mail, but I'll have a copy of the form letter, and I'll have it. If you want me to approve it with you guys, that's fine. And I'll have a list of everybody I send it to. Okay.
Thank you very much. Dave, reach out to Allie. She just mentioned in chat that she'd be interested in talking to you a little bit more.
Allie
Allie,
Operations?
yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Allie. I'm blanking on your last name. I'm not a jerk, mostly, maybe, kind of. Okay, Allie. Okay.
Allie, if you just want to reach out to him, this dave.veterick@animatwincities.org.
Cool. Thank you.
I heard
John.
Jim wants the position.
Do we also want to put a copy of that letter on our website, just so in case anybody wants to come and look us up to get information to see if we're even giving out donations?
Generally, that letter is to continue our relationship, not like a public announcement that we're just not available.
Okay. Just a thought.
Yes.
Okay, and it's my opinion at this time, because of the situation we have with the pandemic impacting our financial situation, that having a letter out there saying, hey, this is what you do if you want distributions, when there's probably no way we can do that, would probably be counterproductive. I don't want to bait switch people. So,
Fair point.
that's just my opinion. It's a good idea if we were flush. We're not flush, so that's just
Because
my
my
opinion.
idea was to have a letter out there saying, hey, folks, thanks for visiting us. I'm sorry, but we're not able to help out with donations at this time.
I think that that's just provides negative news coverage, in my opinion. But I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I can see that.
We don't need people thinking, are they going under? We don't need it. That's people will create rumors on their own. We don't need to feed the fire, in my opinion.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're right. And thank you.
All right. Did anybody else have any other questions or concerns before we carry on to Troy with Detour?
Excuse me.
Dave.
You are not excused. You must stay here.
No. I forgot I had a lot of mustard for dinner tonight, so I apologize.
Okay, so it looks like we're not getting any questions in the YouTube chat. So Troy, we will move on to you with Anime Detour. Sorry, I just wanted to get you to the end since I know this is going to be.
Yeah,
There's probably going to be some questions, and it might go a little bit.
For those that may not have seen the email sent to staff or in the staff Facebook group, for a number of reasons, large, small, and in the middle, elected to cancel the physical convention scheduled for April of this year. We'll be shifting our focus to continuing to look at what we can offer virtually and managing that. We should be able to get, or like I said, our hope is to get an announcement out on our social media channels tomorrow, followed by the website at Drew's convenience. This is sort of the first thing that we're getting out under Drew. So I don't have a timetable for him, so I don't want to put words in his mouth. We did meet with the Hyatt on December 17th, as we had said we were going to, and had a number of discussions with them and the executive team. And through that, the end result, after a lot of discussion and back and forth, the end result of that will be that they will waive the penalties for us this year. So that's a good. Yeah, we just announced it to the department heads. Like I said, we'll get that public announcement up, shifting to virtual. I don't know that we have any. We had not opened registration, so we'll just be dealing with the 2,600 rollovers that we have on the books from last year. We had not yet opened Artist Alley or Exhibit Hall, so we don't have those those particular types of refunds to look at. So it'll be primarily refunds, rollovers for what would have been our 2021 event. The default will be rollover, though anybody who wants a refund and asks for one will get a refund. So I think that just about covers everything we've got right now, unless there's questions in the chat. Guess they don't have to be in the chat. They could be from you all, but unless there's any questions.
No, you answered all the questions that I had.
I was typing, and I might. So you have a meeting with the Hyatt on the 17th, or you had it?
We got it with the 17th. There was some questions in
Okay.
the staff Facebook that I did go back and watch the meeting, that had been under the impression that we were going to have an answer within a week from the time we announced the meeting, which was on a weekend. We didn't even meet with them until Thursday, with 2 different weeks in there where there was a holiday, and 95% of their staff, that's their number, is on rolling furloughs. So it created a few more delays in our communication chain than we would have wanted, and also ironing out. I guess ultimately I'm comfortable with the delay that was incurred based on the resolution that we ended up at. So just mentioning that we met with them on the 17th, that was the first time we were able to speak with them and sort of crack open the door and start working from there. So yeah, we're almost a month past that. It's a little longer, like I said, than we would have preferred, but with the holidays in there and various staff being on furloughs because of COVID and or holidays, and also dealing with not just communicating with our folks and our contacts at Hyatt locally, but then that needing to get back to corporate and boomerang back to us created some delays in the communication chain. But like I said, I'm very comfortable with that part of the end result.
And we got the result we were hoping for, I guess. So that's
Yes, eventually.
good. And trying to work with any corporation over the holidays,
Yeah.
but especially this holiday, it's going to be slow.
True.
So yeah, that's it's obviously not what we would have liked to do. We're not in the business of not putting on conventions, despite recent years. But yeah, it's not what we were trying to do, not what we hoped for. But we felt for a number of reasons, the impact, et cetera, that it would have had on the event wouldn't have been much like the detour folks knew. Some things would have just had to have been cut, like the rave and things like that. So that is primarily health and safety. Just felt like it was the most responsible decision. So there we are.
So I did actually think of one question. And if it is something you would prefer to discuss in private, please let me know. Has there been any discussion of signing further hotel contracts until we know further, or?
There has been.
Okay.
And essentially, that was helpful in helping us to get closer to waiving any penalties for canceling the 2021 show. So in difficult decisions and knowing our current financial landscape and sort of the uncertainties with COVID and how that affects our finances going forward, essentially not only the thought process but the actual reality of it is, had we not done that, we would have been looking at our penalties this year. And if we had been looking at our penalties this year, I certainly can't make any guarantees, but the impact would have been huge. That knowing cancellation within 3 months, I'd have to go back and look at the penalty schedule, but I believe that still put us in roughly the 170,000 bracket, which at last speak, I believe, was roughly what we anticipated having in the bank account. So could have created a situation where we were at a null sum, and that's before refunding 2,600 people for their, so there would not have been enough, had we been assessed the full penalty there would not have been enough to pay those penalties and refund the people on the books. If that was the case, obviously at a zero sum, that effectively closes the doors on the organization, triggers a legal dissolution, and that's the end. So our thought was, best move was for us to work within those confines and do essentially what we're planning to do next month with the board, and have this discussion about our financials, where we are, how to progress forward, how we can collaborate, what changes on the board side, what changes on the detour side, to rebuild things best we can, whether it be financially independent of COVID or specifically due to the effects of 2 years of COVID triggering cancellation of 2 consecutive events, and the income that we would normally see from those, at least funding all of the things in the next year. So neither option was fantastic. Each came with some pros and cons, but we felt like that was the best move. So yes, we will be finalizing those contracts. Keep in mind though, just lest anybody question as a whole, signing contracts further out, we do have contracts on the books already through 2024, and even in years further than that, 2025, 2026, they have about I think each year they had 3 weekends of dates available. So even that far out, their availability. Now, granted, many people could cancel before that year, but as far as being able to select our dates now, that's essentially what we have, even that far out. So
I was just thinking we can hopefully avoid Easter again.
yes, none of the 6 dates, 3 each year, that we have the opportunity to look at, all in March and April. I think 3 in 2025 are in March, 2 in 2026 are in March, 1 is in April. None of them are on Easter weekend. I didn't have the opportunity to
Hello?
Assuming that his network connection was disconnected. So
There we go. I'm back.
Hey, he's
I
back.
don't know what
I
happened.
don't
You're
think we
muted,
can-
Tristan.
I don't think we can hear you, Tristan.
Hi there, folks. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Suddenly, everything just kind of died.
Yeah.
So sorry to technically interrupt you for everybody,
Nope.
Troy.
That-
We were talking about
That's essentially
Easter.
where we were at. Yeah, we there are no dates on Easter. I was explaining that I didn't have time to dig too much into each one of the dates and see if it fell on any other sort of local spring events. We still have some time to do that, and we'll make sure and get the board a copy of the proposed contract so we can all lay eyes on that. And if there's anything we'd like to try to get adjusted, we'll have the time to do that before we actually sign anything. So
Awesome.
but yeah, like I said, that was I guess for lack of a better word, in the negotiations, that was a significant part of being able to waive those penalties, which would have hurt us very much. So there you go.
Where else are we gonna go? It's fine. Like,
I mean, I can think of a few places.
well,
Let's go to the Metrodome.
no. What? The Metrodome?
Really,
No.
really, only two,
No.
only two faces.
No.
Oh, that's all. That's all of the update for Detour. Like I said, we just hit the ground with the for the next couple of months. We have a staff meeting as well as a department head meeting in the same month. So we just opened with that this past weekend with the department heads and started talking about our technological needs, etc. We'll be talking with our IT head as well, and starting to get those pieces matched up to see what sort of what our virtual con will start to take shape and look like for the same weekend in April.
Sweet. Well, that was significantly less questions and shorter than I expected. Unless anybody else in YouTube land has any other questions or anything. Mike Anderson volunteers his nice little place down in Sioux Falls. I've seen it. It's nice. Okay, looks like we're not getting anything else in the chat there. So at this point, I think we can skip our 15-minute break unless anybody needs it.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. So then we had the only discussion topic we had for the night was with Troy. It was essentially on board candidate qualifications. Troy, I'll hand that over to you. Again.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, in looking at, I guess for lack of a better word, some sort of qualifications, procedures, and what we're looking for in candidates for the board right now, other than being in good standing, you have to send a statement. I've seen a number of statements over the years, rambling at best, some having nothing to do or perhaps even no knowledge of what they're asking to be voted in for. And I think in the times, I would have said this pre-COVID, but especially with COVID, I think what we're going to be asking for and looking for out of our board of directors is going to be much more significant than has been in the past. Not necessarily for everybody, but yeah, I think it's a large responsibility. And I guess if you're looking to not only represent 250 or 300 staff members, but 6,000 members, maybe it should require a bit more of a procedure. And I think if we continue to sell the procedure short, I think we could end up with some less than optimal results. Like I said, I think if staff are in good standing, obviously that's always been the case. Not they can't be current coordinators. But I think some of the other requirements, years are older, about the ability to commit to a certain number of hours per week, because that seems to continue to be an issue. But especially with the procedure and how we're able to present them to our voting membership. I realize it might not be a terribly popular stance, but at least as far as I'm concerned, being someone's friend is neither a qualification or a skill set. It's just not, does not mean you're going to be a good board member, and there's evidence of that. I think if a candidate is not willing to interview or answer questions from the people they are looking to represent, then that just about answers the question in my mind about how great of a thing to be for me. I think asking candidates to be able to give, a 5 to 10 minute oral presentation viewable by all members, we should be able to hear from you what you expect to do on the board, what you hope to bring to the board. I think each candidate should undergo an interview period with their voting membership as well as with the board. And I think, again, if that's not something that they're willing to do, then how can we expect them to represent the entirety of membership anywhere else in the public if they're not willing to be interviewed for that position? And I think there needs to be more of a process than tell me you want it, stand up in front of us and repeat your statement and play to that. It's a board of directors. It's not, it's a legal board of directors. So I'd like to propose to see some sort of policies and procedures regarding what's required of candidates and a process that they go through so we can better inform the voting membership so that they can vote with confidence on who they think will be able to best serve them, best represent them, and steer the organization out of some situations here.
Okay. David, then Ashley.
We have a situation. We have a procedure. We don't sit there and decide a board member's not good enough because he doesn't meet the procedures of the current board members. What you're saying, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the performance of certain board members have been less than exemplary. However, we have a voting system. Mm-hmm. We put these board members in the representation of our staff, and they are responsible to make sure. If someone can't go up there and talk for 10 minutes, we should provide 10 minutes to speak and for questions in front of the entire staff. And if we have to do it online, yeah, that's fine. But when you say, if they can't do this, well, who judges that they can't do it?
If they're not willing to.
Well, if they go up there 10 minutes and don't say anything, because they don't want to do that. Let me finish my thoughts, please. Thank you. The voting membership will see that. We've always had a problem, especially before when I was on the board, that this board was some side of elitist things, and they never listened to the never listened to the lesser members, the lesser staff members. We are always making decisions up here, and we're never lessening them. So I just don't want to make sure that we don't gatekeep the next groups. I understand what you're saying. I commiserate with what you're saying, but I don't think the tone of your procedures seems to be gatekeeping. I think we should make sure you say you're expected to be here or you'll be removed. I expect a 10-minute presentation. But if they go up there, you just got to be careful that you're saying, I don't think these people are good enough. I know some of them aren't good enough, but if we take this power out of the hands of our voter membership, what are they going to think about us?
What is the power that they have?
What, the voters? They vote.
Right, but we're not even helping them to gather information on the
They're
candidate.
not retarded. Oh, sorry. God, I can't use that word. That's a older generation. They're not. They know who's good and who's not. And I think we should let them decide who's good and who's not.
So your argument is against providing them with more information on the candidate.
No, I am not. I'm providing them the opportunity. I just don't want to have this. I don't want any judgment made on any candidate because they don't want to do something. The candidates should up there. The voters should.
If that's the requirement, then that's the requirement. This is what you need to do to be able to serve on the board. It has to be more than email.
I disagree. I disagree that when you start saying they have to be able to do this and they have to answer questions and we should decide which one should vote, what happens is that people go out there and say they're going to get the people they want up there. And I know that's not what you're doing, Troy, but...
Well, that's what happens now.
What's wrong with having a minimum requirement, though?
A minimum requirement of what?
Answering questions by your voting membership and the board you're going to serve on. It doesn't... There's no judgment... There's no judgment at the end of either one of those periods. It's to better inform the voting membership who still votes.
Right, and I just said that. I said to have a time for proposals and questions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just don't want to phrase it as a requirement.
It should be a requirement.
As an opportunity.
No.
Okay, I'm doing...
Let's let Ashley go, and then...
Christina. Ashley, then Christina. You're muted, Ashley.
I see that. So we've talked about this previously, and I remember there was a discussion about why it was not explicitly listed in the bylaws themselves. But at the bare minimum, what was discussed was providing a 10-question questionnaire that all candidates had to fill out with their statement. Because the fact of the matter is some of the voting members are voting without having a chance to talk to the candidates. This year, none of the candidates this last year talked to anybody. I didn't have to go and talk to any of the membership. They only had to go based off my statement alone. And there were 9 statements to read through.
And
but having a questionnaire attached to a statement, and looking at having it so that, they are available for questions from the membership as well, like on a Zoom call or something like that. But at the bare minimum, I would like to see like a 10-question sheet that everybody has to fill out with the same questions. So it's not like we're picking and choosing or anything like that.
yeah, and just to clarify, Dave, that is kind of what we did this year. We asked the membership for a list of questions that then gave them to some of them the board picked, some of them the interviewees picked to answer.
That was done as a tiebreaker for the presidency when the presidency was being voted on, and it significantly changed the vote, having the members being able to see additional questions, because same thing with the presidency. See, there was no statements that were made besides for the written statement. They didn't have the speech. They didn't have the chance for questions. I'm not a big person for having to give 5-minute speeches. I hate that. I didn't do it when I was president or when I ran for president for other organizations. They had other means of doing it, but that's all.
Okay. Yeah, and
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think like Dave in the past, as you know, this sort of thing would always be done live at a meeting. But this year with COVID, we kind of had to just come up with how are we going to do this all online? And we basically just were like, write us a paragraph and put it on the website with a picture. And that's all we had. And I think what we're wanting to do is have more than that because people just don't know who people are or what they want or what they're running for and that sort of thing. So I think, where Troy and Ashley is coming from is like, we just need to put down a set of guidelines saying, hey, when you're running, these are your expectations because we don't have those anywhere either. There's no expectation written out really of what a board member's responsibilities are. So we know that's been something we've kind of discussed getting written down so that, people know what they're running for and then what they're standing for. And I think just with the whole age of going digital, things just have to get more clarified because you're not just in person being able to talk back and forth really fast. That's all that I had.
And then I don't know who was next, John or Troy.
I'll let John go.
My point that I was going to bring up was actually brought up by Christina. So,
Okay.
Troy.
And I think, it is a challenge. It's something that we haven't done, but I guess I would rather be able to make an informed decision than an emotional one. And I don't think asking board members to do more than what has been asked in the past is, an immediate denigration of anything that's come before or, an immediate personal affront to anybody. Just like if people don't want to attend meetings, then, applying for the board probably isn't in your interest. I think we owe it to our membership to be able to better inform them about who the candidates are. And the candidates answering questions by the people that they are asking to serve, I don't think is out of line. Them being asked questions in a different area by the people that they will replace, for lack of a better word, or serve with, I also don't think is anything negative. I think all of those steps will help strengthen the board when, our organization, we're on, we have some precarious footing here and we're not really sure where COVID will allow us to go. So I don't think having a little bit more of a procedure than just email us, any kind of statement that you would like. I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's a little, long overdue to have, it shouldn't be as simple. I have no issue acknowledging that there's always going to be a popular vote element to it. But if people make a popular vote, but they're also informed about, I know that this is what this person said they'd like to do on the board, I can identify with that. This person seems to have knowledge about the board, I identify with that. I think we owe it to our membership to help craft an improved board and an improved process and improved information about who these candidates are. That's my stance on it.
So Kevin had a couple comments in chats. Expectations are good. Mandating requirements from a board to a future candidate seems in bad form. Giving them a chance to give information, I think, is good. Requiring it, though, I feel is bad. But if they don't do it, then refused or didn't give statement, speech, etc., I feel is its own bullet. I can't say I disagree. I definitely feel that, yeah, he's not wrong there. If everybody else is answering questions and you just decide you don't want to, that right there is it's gonna be that right there is gonna be its own thing that those people will have to deal with. I definitely say I would strongly encourage answering questions or doing stuff like that just because I like to have more information. I do feel that regardless of this, there is, and then this will be a separate discussion another time, but there's definitely some requirements as a board member that do need to be put in place, that we've come across the last year or two. But that's a separate discussion. Troy?
So, out of curiosity, would it seem to make sense that there's actually more of a process and more requirements necessary to obtain a department head position at Detour than there is to be a serving board member? Because I struggle with that. We have an interview process. If you want to apply to be the head of tech and you say, but I really don't want to interview, now the amount of consideration you will be given to proceed throughout the process is going to be affected then. Thereby, similarly, if when Detour was in the practice of doling out positions without interviewing people, it was called into question. And for the 7 people that are voting on every single direction that Anime Twin Cities is to be going in the next 2 years, I ask for more.
But the difference between a department head and a board member is the word election.
And
that's
also,
I only point that out, but I'm withdrawing any other objection.
And also, in your same point, Troy, it's the same thing. If we offer all these candidates, say, hey, we would like to know this additional information. Can you answer these questions? If they choose to do it in a 20-minute YouTube video, if they choose to just write their answers down and present those because they're not comfortable doing a video, anything like that. If some candidates do, and then some decide not to, as you said, that's the same as. That in my eyes, I would see that same as turning down an interview, saying, hey, I don't want to do I'm interested, but I don't want to do any interviews. That has its own thing. People,
like I said, the questions are to inform the people before the election. That's it.
Yes.
Not to disqualify. If people choose to not partake in the process, then okay, so can I be considered, if I wasn't a coordinator, could I be considered to be a board member if I don't feel like writing a statement?
Yes, but that's the point. That's the point I'm making. Is if everybody else decides to do it, and you're the only one that decides not to answer any questions and not to help enlighten people to your opinions and your stances on things, this may just be me, but tending towards popular opinion, those kinds of people are not going to be looked on nearly as favorably as the rest of them, and they would. I don't think they would usually get my vote. John, you've had your hand up for a while, and then Ashley.
Yes. So I have to agree with Troy on this particular point that it's more difficult. Right, as of right now, the standards to become a department head are. What's the word I'm looking for? There are more requirements to become a board or a department head than there is to be a board member. I feel that having the question process added to the application process for becoming a board member would be appropriate, and possibly other things. I mean, because you have to remember, we're electing people that are literally running Anime Twin Cities. I mean, it's a very important position that we're doing right here, and it has legal responsibilities with it. And our immediate actions can have lasting effects. And I feel the election process for these positions should reflect that. That's all.
Ashley? Muted.
Ashley, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just don't know how to hit the unmute button. Okay, so I'm gonna have to agree with Dave that the difference is it's an election. That's what the whole process of the organization is based off of. Anime Detour is not voting. You're not voting for a department head, so it's more like a job rather than an election to whatever. So I will agree with Dave there that it is an election. And then as Kevin pointed out, the legal ramifications. I would say that there are no legal ramifications provided that we are not preventing any candidate from being able to run. They can refuse to submit to extra questions or speeches, but that would come through on a vote. And if the membership decides that they want to vote for somebody who refuses to fill out additional questions, that's on the membership. That's not anything we can control, nor is it something that we can say. We can add the questionnaire and say we would strongly suggest that you fill this out and put it along with your statement to give people more information about you, or you participate in something that we organize, but you cannot turn away a candidate. We do not have any means of restricting any candidates, not without changing our bylaws. But right now you cannot, even if we were to implement it now, we could not turn people away if they just refuse to make a statement or refuse to fill out additional questions or refuse to answer questions from the membership. But if the membership decides that that's who they want, then that's what the membership decides. There are write-in candidates for a reason. And generally people who refuse to do a statement would fall into the write-in category anyway. They don't get put on the website with everybody else. So just because they refuse doesn't mean there's not consequences for it, but we're not refusing to allow them to even be running.
Christina, you had your hand up if Ashley, you're done.
Okay. So, yeah, it sounds like we're kind of all getting onto the same page. We want to have more, not requirements, but the information from potential candidates. So I think what we're wanting to do perhaps is come up with a project to come up with what we want that information to be. So basically in May or whenever it is, we say, hey, time to run for board. Instead of just saying, please respond with an email with your statement saying, please answer all of these things. Does that sound accurate? We need a project to decide what these things should be. And then probably as part of that, this is what we expect out of a board member. Come to meetings, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
I feel like that would ultimately also be wrapped into planning for how the annual meeting is going to be run this year, because the annual meeting has to be separate from Anime Detour's postpartum, so it's not getting mixed in with Anime Detour meetings anymore.
Yep.
And because it's going to have to be online at this point, like we know our annual meeting's going to be online.
Mhm.
So I think that would just be an overall project for planning that entire meeting, because our election is going to be such a short window that day as well.
Are we doing the thing where the election's just 1 hour or whatever? Or...
I believe
That's-
it's like 2 hours minimum or something like that.
Yeah. And
Okay.
that was part of the discussion we were going to have.
Period is specified in the new bylaws. It's a minimum of 2 hours, not to exceed 24. So we do have wiggle room to change it, but obviously we want to know how we're going to run the annual meeting before we have people submitting their candidacy, so that they are informed of how to run for candidacy. So like if they know that we're going to be hosting a Zoom call and that they can call in, or a Google call, and they can come in and answer questions in the YouTube chat, or we create a survey that gets added to their statement on the website.
So when you say flesh it out, Kevin, are you talking about questions we would ask them, or what the membership would like to see in regards to these additional things?
While we're waiting for that, well, okay.
Okay.
Well, the only people that can vote for a board member is a voting member,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Right. So,
Which changes every year. So would we only be asking the voting members this year?
I'm not clear on what we're asking them, to be honest.
So the way from if I understand Kevin's question is, so we're talking about adding additional. I don't want to call it requirements or steps because we've agreed that's not necessarily what it is, but additional parts. If my understanding is correct, he's asking if we want to ask our membership what they want those to be.
And our membership is 6,000, not just 250 staff.
So he said membership, and I think, that's what he said, but I think probably what we really mean is the voting members, since they're the ones that are voting.
And what I'm saying is that number and those people change every year. So would we only be asking for this information from the people who happen to have voting rights this year? It seems like we're further restricting the group from all members to staff to voting members for voting members this year.
Well, I honestly thought, just as a board, we could probably come up with what we think good questions are.
What I would
So
Because I honestly, as far as coming up with those questions, while I would not turn away feedback from from our membership,
that's what the open forum is going to be for.
Correct. Opening.
We're going to try and do that.
Messaging all 6,000 of our members, or all 300 of our staff on that we have on our staff list. Would make it very long, very, very long, very, very complicated. I would say we either limit it. It's only two ways. It's either all of them, or the board. It's one or the other as far as the main way we're gonna do it. Either we message everybody, or the board does it, and we take any input from people who choose to provide input.
So I think
people
what I'm
still
doing
have their
is...
hands up, so I'm not sure if people still have questions.
Oh, whoops. Well, so I'm thinking what I'm going to want to do is I'm putting down a project for us to work on the annual meeting discussion / running for candidacy. Right now, I just have board, because it's probably something where we should all work together. What month does our annual meeting need to be in? Do you know that, Ashley?
Within 60 days of the Anime Detour scheduled postpartum. Or, hang on, 60 days of convention.
Yep.
So it would have been within 60 days of
Easter.
Easter. Yep.
And it can, and we did, I believe, specifically state that it cannot be during the postmortem. So it would have to, whatever day the postmortem would have been, we would have to pick a different day.
Correct.
And so I'm trying so hard to remember, but my brain is awful. Do we vote the new candidates in? They start in June, or is June sort of the crossover month, or do they start?
It would depend on where the annual meeting falls.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Because we don't operate on calendar year, we operate on an operating year.
Yep. So if I remember right, it's the month after the annual meeting when the new new board.
There should be no reason why our annual meeting is in that late anyway, unless there's conflicts or something going on. But
okay, so it should be in May.
That would be up that would be part of the project to decide. So just keep it on. Just keep it on as a monthly thing that we have to talk about.
Okay.
Since that's going to be coming up.
Yep.
Because I believe candidacy and all that starts opening at least 30 days before annual meeting. So.
Correct. So that would be what, end of next month, ish.
Depending on when you schedule the meeting.
So I said ish.
We have to decide on when that meeting is going to be.
So we need to decide how the annual meeting is going to run first, and when it is going to run.
Yeah.
In order to answer some of these questions.
Okay. Okay. So Since next month is going to be financials, I'm just going to put this on there for March, and then we can just keep chasing it down until we get it figured out.
And
Yeah.
something we can.
But maybe we can start. We can start working on it now, but not tonight. But
we don't need an
before
answer tonight.
February is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be fair to, at least by March, have a plan in place as to timelines for things and how things are going to run.
Yeah.
March should not be the start of that conversation.
Correct. Yeah. March should be when we talk about it. Talk about what our plan is after we've made it. Troy, did we get everything kind of that you wanted?
I guess I just think that we have a responsibility to our membership in the community to have appropriate procedures in place to put forth as competent a board of directors as we can, and we have a responsibility to our members to inform them of who the candidates are. So that was where it was coming from. All I can do as a member is say, I think that this has been an area of deficiency and work on it. It's not always supposed to be, like I said, a personal affront or an attack, but I feel pretty strongly that if some things along those lines aren't changed, we won't have, the problem will resolve itself. We eventually won't have to worry about board this and board that and et cetera. And I hope that's not the case, but I think without some very, competent, qualified folks that understand, and there's education too, understanding what we're asking for them as board members hasn't always been communicated to them. So I think there's also sort of for lack of a better word, a little bit of an onboarding process. I think all these things do is help to build a better board, and they're the people that are going to have to steer the ship. So that I guess that's where I was coming from if that wasn't communicated. But yes, thank you.
Okay. And then I know in the chat, I saw Michael and Kevin had some questions and statements. I just wanted to make sure that you guys, I saw Troy was answering some of those during the discussion. I just want to make sure everybody had all their questions answered. We didn't miss anybody.
The only reason I answered is Michael had one question for me. But yeah, if $15 of my Enemy Tour membership goes towards being an ATC member, then they should be just as informed as a staff member. If we're informing staff members who can't vote, then we should also be informing membership who aren't voting and also aren't staff. Otherwise, we're essentially drawing a line and saying it's only important if you're staff.
True. Allie, in regards to your question, I do believe I was told that there was a checkbox on the registration forms for like communications, like an email list, updates, stuff like that. I don't personally remember one because I always tend to fill mine out at the meetings, but I was told there was. I may be wrong. Yeah, no, Kevin, I don't think we don't really have a newsletter per se anymore, but that is something that could go out. But as far as the 6,000 plus people, yeah, you're right. It's. I mean, technically, yes, they are our membership. Obviously, not all of them. I don't think statistically would want to necessarily get all those updates. But that's.
I mean, that's a super simple, like, get me off the list thing. There are simple ways of setting that up, and you can even do that in Google itself. I don't know if you can do 6,000 email addresses, but.
Well, right now we technically only have 2,600.
2,600.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
So I don't know how big Google Groups can get, but that is something we can look at there because there is an option in the Google Groups to add a unsubscribe button, because when they do send, like when they're sending mass emails out regarding like refunds, rollovers, they are not going through our Google account to do so. They are pulling directly from the registration database. So if we did set up something in Google for them to be communicated with that allowed them to unsubscribe, then That would be completely separate from any actual like registration communications. But right now, the large dump of emails for members who are not staff, they are, to my knowledge, not being used for anything other than communicating registration status to those members.
Okay. So it looks like we did get get the rest of the questions answered. Okay, so yeah, we will be working on that over the next coming month or two to get those to get something started on that. Get some ideas, get some points to start with, and we can iron it out from there. Do any of the board members or anybody else in the audience have any other questions, concerns about anything we discussed this evening? Otherwise, that's where we're at the end of the list for tonight. I'll just cover what we got here while the chat might catch up here. So that, like I said, that is all that we've got on our list for tonight. For February, we're doing we've got Kim going over things. Some of us are going to be looking at some other stuff. We're going to be doing a little bit more of a deep dive into our financials, how things have been going, how we're hoping we might be able to do things in the upcoming future. And then in March, John and I, we got to sit down and go over our proposal for the recording of the board meetings going forward. But those are the only two things we currently have on the schedule at this time for the next couple of months. If you guys do have any questions or concerns about anything you want to bring up to us, you don't need to wait till the board meetings. You can reach any of us. It's our personal emails. It's our first name our last name @animetwincities.org, or you can just reach us collectively at ATC Board @animetwincities.org. Where most of us we're keeping a pretty good spot on our emails daily. We will get back to you. We usually do not intentionally ignore things, but life happens and some things can slip through the cracks. So please don't be afraid to reach out to us with any questions or concerns outside of the meetings. So unless anybody else has any other questions, I will motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
I second that motion. I second that.
All right. Thank you everybody for coming. Please make sure you did check in with Christina at the secretary email and comment in chat if you are here to make sure you are counted as in attendance. Thank you very much, and you guys all have a great evening.